Before we dive in, here's another show you can enjoy in the True Story FM family of entertainment podcasts. Hey Pete, ever wonder what Steven Spielberg's favorite film is?
You know, Andy, I've heard he loves classics like Lawrence of Arabia, maybe in St. Louis.
Imagine chatting with him about why those films resonate with him so much.
That's exactly what we do on our podcast, Movies We Like. We've had incredible guests like actress Dee Wallace, cinematographer Eric Messerschmidt, director Steve Miner, and former Disney animators Tom and Tony Bancroft.
They share their favorite films and the impact they've had on their careers, offering fascinating insights into the craftsmanship and storytelling techniques that make these movies so special.
If you're curious about the magic behind the scenes, subscribe to Movies We Like from True Story FM on your favorite podcast app. New episodes are released on the fourth Monday of each month with early access for our members.
Join us on Movies We Like as we explore the movies we all like with the people who make them.
And Stephen, our people will call your people. Let's make this happen, puppy.
Subscribe today.
What's up, most excellent friends?
It's Chrissy and Nathan from the Most Excellent 80s Movies podcast.
It's a podcast where a filmmaker and a comedian
And their most excellent guests,
adventure their way through the 80s movies we think we love
or might have missed.
with our grown-up eyes to see how they hold up.
Join us for delightful discussion,
Rollicking recaps.
ratings, and deep-cut recommendations.
Plus, members get some extra fun chit-chat with the hosts after the show.
Download the Most Excellent 80s Movies podcast today at truestory.fm.
Or find it wherever the finest podcasts are stored.
And do remember to keep the Most Excellent 80s Movies podcast motto in mind.
Be excellent to each other and...
Party on.
Party on, dudes.
Coming up on The Devil's Details, everyone's an asshole. The Seven Princes of Hell. Good morning, Star Lovelies, and welcome to another episode of The Devil's Details, a show where we dig up, decipher, dissect, and deconstruct the many forms of the devil. One of my names is Lester Ryan Clark.
And I sometimes go by Keenan Diaz.
And we're just two lost souls hitchhiking down the highway to hell. And just remember, today's episode was originally recorded as bonus content for our first podcast. No, it wasn't! Past Lester and Keenan don't exist anymore! It's just us! Present Lester and Keenan. Did we trick you? Did you think it was the recording again? Well, it's not. It's a different recording.
You tricked me.
Yeah. You thought you were listening to us in the past?
I thought I was listening to myself in the past. I said,
Yeah.
Wake up, Keenan. It's real. This is no recording. This is really happening. As Rosemary says in Rosemary's Baby.
There you go.
There you go.
I like that. Ooh, that's another idea for our bonus content right there. But Keenan, we are finally doing new episodes of The Devil's Details.
Yeah, boy. It's the devil, baby.
Oh, folks, I'm so excited. And yes, folks, it feels good to be back. Last time we covered Paradise Lost and Paradise Regained, so we thought it would be good to take a break from the literary stuff and focus on some devil lore, like in our earlier episodes. So today's topic, I think we mentioned them on the show before, we're going to be covering the Seven Princes of Hell. Specifically, we're going to be looking at Peter Binsfeld's version, which I can't not see Judge Claude Frollo when I envision this guy, Keenan.
Yeah, now I will as well.
Yeah, who was actually the archdeacon in the book, right? He wasn't a judge, right? But yeah, Peter Binsfeld was a very influential bishop in the late 1500s, probably most famous for his heavy involvement in the witch trials of Trier from 1581 to 1593.
I saw that is the largest execution of civilians in peacetime.
Geesh, yeah.
Yeah, I suppose once you get to like the Holocaust, then that line between peacetime and wartime kind of blurs, but that's what I saw.
Oh, okay, that's why the distinction, peacetime.
Yeah, 368 people.
Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, yeah, in his name, right?
Yeah.
Sheesh. Right? And it's like in Among Us where you eject the person you thought was the imposter, right? And then on the screen you'll see like in the little subtitles say, Abigail was not a witch. Goody Proctor was not a witch. You have executed 368 people. And you have executed 0 witches.
Right.
Just all of these names.
Yeah, we'll have to spend some time and do eventually some episodes on witch trials, but they're depressing. They were real people.
Yeah.
They weren't just little Among Us sus boys.
No.
They were real people.
Yeah. That's the and I'm going to get to that, folks, because I've gotten like this. I've gotten a classification of my own talking about these demons, and that one's at the very, very bottom is when we get to like the depressing stuff that actually hurt and killed a lot of people, right? Yeah, but yeah, we'll get to that. But yeah, so during the witch trials of Trier, Binsfeld wrote an influential piece titled, quote, "Of the Confessions of Warlocks and Witches," right? Which was exactly that, right? It was a bunch of, quote, unquote, confessions by, quote, unquote, witches, which had been obtained through torture and therefore, according to Binsfeld, were like even more authentic than regular confessions. Which that like that's some medieval logic that I cannot wrap my head around. It must be true because we tortured them.
Right.
Okay. And folks, Binsfeld was well respected and regarded as a reasonable man. And remember, this was still in the time of natural philosophers, right, who predate scientists. These are the proto-scientists who are also like trying to explain God scientifically. Remember, John Milton, who, came a little later, was really into, quote, justifying the ways of God to men, so much so that he included a whole thing about the angel digestive system in his poem, Paradise Lost. Why? Because we have to know these things. How do angels poop? Right? Anyway, but yeah, just pointing that out because of how different it is from today, where like the more scientific you are, the less religious you're likely to be. But I'm not saying that's always the case. Maybe what I'm trying to say is today, religion has been redefined as something we accept rather than dissect. Even if you are scientific, you're not applying your knowledge of biology or physics to God. Right? Those are separate in your mind, right? Even our boy Dimmy from The Exorcist, right? He was a Jesuit, right? And they were regarded as this subgroup of Catholic priests who, invest in the sciences, right? But they don't turn around and go, okay, so how does gravity work in heaven, right? They're actual scientists studying the physical world and keeping it separate from their faith, right? Not like Milton or Binsfeld, who are trying to force them together. I mean, just look at how the witch trials were carried out, right? Look at all the tests and experiments to identify a witch, right? They're trying to make it a science.
Right. And I saw that Binsfeld got some more credence than normal because unlike some of the other people who were searching for witches, he would be like, people don't shapeshift, you guys. That's made up nonsense. And it's impossible that, like, even if you're a witch, you don't all of a sudden get a devil's mark on you somewhere. So because he had some rational and scientific thoughts, people took him more seriously when he was like, but this one's a witch.
Right. See, now that's how you do it, right? You say you badmouth pre-established bullshit to make your bullshit smell a little bit better.
Right.
Right. Look at this. What do you guys think the witches fly and they have the devil's marks? That's so stupid.
Right. Yeah, he also was like, you can't be putting children on trial for witchcraft. That's ridiculous. Like, they have to at least be 14 years old.
Oh, of course. Jesus Christ. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Again, folks, laughing because of how horrible it is.
Because of how horrible it is.
Yeah. But yeah, so in 1589, Binsfeld publishes his of Confessions of Warlocks and Witches, but we're not here to read the confession part, which I imagine went a lot like, are you a witch? No. Extreme torture. Are you a witch? Yes. Please let me go. Murder. We're here because within this quote-unquote confession book is Peter Binsfeld's notorious classification of the 7 princes of hell.
Sounds a lot more fun to me.
Yeah, right? Yeah. It's like I love it when we pokeify hell. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
Right? Who's that Goetia-mon? It's Baal, right? Baal. And that's all he says. Right? Oh, we got to get to that too, the Ars Goetia. Okay, so first thing we got to know is that Binsfeld wasn't the first person to introduce the idea of there being 7 princes of hell coinciding with the 7 deadly sins. That was actually a pseudo-religious tract written almost 200 years earlier called The Lantern of Light. And we might do an episode on that, although even less is known about it. We don't even know who wrote it or why. People thought it might have been John Wycliffe, a prominent figure in the Reformation, but that has since been debunked. Wycliffe wrote it, not the Reformation.
Oh. They found some evidence that the Reformation wasn't real.
Just to be clear. Right. But yeah, Lantern of Light was already out there in circulation, and it's very similar to Binsfeld's classification. People are pretty sure Binsfeld took not only a leaf from that book, but the whole damn book. But like I said, right, it's not even a book. It's a pseudo-religious tract, which was already considered heretical by the Catholic Church. So even the one before Binsfeld was never considered canon. It's not scriptural. It's more fan fiction, right?
Okay.
Which I'm learning to feel better about. Folks, I was a little bummed when we did our thing on Baphomet, and we found that not only is Baphomet not mentioned in any religious texts, they're not even mentioned in any apocryphal or pseudo-religious texts. There aren't even any legends or folk tales about Baphomet. Baphomet was literally born out of the tortured confessions of the Knights Templar. And even then, Baphomet wasn't even the cool goat-headed demon, right? They were like a severed human head, which the knights admitted to worshiping, right? And I had been so excited to learn about Baphomet, and I realized that I had been fooled. I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one getting worked up about this, but it's like there's fake, and then there's Baphomet fake. Do you see what I'm getting at, Keenan?
Like your Robin Hood reel, or
yeah, and I'm gonna get to that. Yeah, like I can read about Zeus and Poseidon and Medusa and the Minotaur, right? I can't read about Baphomet. I can misread the words Satan or Lucifer and follow, folks like Thomas Aquinas and, St. Augustine of Hippo and learn about angelology. And even though it's not in the Bible, it's still, substantial. But when I find out something is Baphomet fake, I'm like, wow, you guys claimed they worshipped a false god, but they didn't make up the god. You made up the god, and you didn't elaborate.
So they had written it up a little bit more into some kind of treatise or something.
Yeah, it was just like,
with subcategories, because everything has to be. There's 4 different types of Baphomet, and then within the Baphomet, there's the physicalness of Baphomet, parts A, B, and Z. Exactly.
Right. So when I learned that these 7 princes came from Peter Binsfeld's book of quote unquote confessions, I was like, is this more Baphomet fake? And folks, I mentioned before on the show, one of my favorite podcasts right now is Apocryphals, and I'm still really bummed that we didn't think of that name. That is such a great name. I'm envious, you might say.
They're the Apocryphals, and our real name is Lester and Keenan.
Yeah.
Boo. Boo.
Right. But apocryphals have this term for how historically real certain people in and out of Scripture are. They say someone is Caesar real, meaning they are objectively real. The person actually existed. We have records and documentation, etc. And then there are characters that are Robin Hood real, which is like this is a very popular figure, even, popular within their own supposed time or a little bit after, but there's little or no evidence that the person actually existed. Or like King Arthur, right? The figure is actually an amalgamation of a bunch of different historical figures, but then the legend got even bigger than actual history, right? So, for example, Prince John from the Robin Hood story is Caesar real, right? Prince John, a.k.a. King John of England, ruled from 1199 to 1216, famously signed the Magna Carta, might have been a scrawny lion.
Right.
Right? But he's Caesar real, but he's also a character in the story of Robin Hood, and Robin Hood himself probably never existed. So Robin Hood is Robin Hood real, obviously.
Right. And people don't like King John and the historical King John, and famously he was forced to sign the Magna Carta and give people rights, so it just fits in that he'd be a villain in this other thing, but that stems from some real aspect about him.
Right.
In that he was unfair to, in that case, the nobles, and then now people say, well, then he must have been unfair to the poor.
Right. So he would be a perfect villain for our Robin Hood story. Yeah. Right.
Because of his historicity.
Yes, exactly. Right. So now that we're doing new episodes of this show, I wanted to make a similar distinction when we talk about these demons and these spirits, because I realized, especially when we looked at Baphomet, that there's actually different levels of fake. And I know when we're talking about religion, there's going to be people who are like, well, all of it's fake. Fine, that's fine. But what I'm interested in is the fact that there are religious people out there today, truly faithful and religious people who believe that hell has 9 circles, like in Dante's Inferno. And that's where I kind of want to step in and be like, wait. Like, the people who wrote what is now the Bible believed what they were writing was true. Dante made up the 9 circles, and he knew he was making it up, right? Like he intentionally made it up as part of his epic poem, right? And nobody in Dante's time read the Inferno and thought, oh my God, this is real. Hell has, 9 circles, right? Even if they considered the Bible to be fiction at that time, they understood that Dante was fan fiction.
Right, and he wasn't trying to put it off that he had discovered a text. He hadn't just like, I discovered this gospel out there somewhere. Right. He was like, I had a dream, and that's his poem. He didn't want you to necessarily believe the literal truth of anything he was saying, except that Beatrice really loved him.
Yes, that was the one part. That's canon. That's scriptural.
And she was a real person.
Yes.
So she was
long
Caesar
distance
real.
relationship in Canada. It was.
And so he's like, it's my girlfriend in Canada, and then they're like, okay, then out in a couple of 100 years later, they discovered a place across the ocean that was really, really, really far away, and they're like, this is really, really, really far away. We should call this Canada. Yeah, like Dante, where Dante's girlfriend lives.
Yeah. And there you go. That's why maple syrup. Yeah. But yeah, okay. So doing this show and researching all these cool demons and all these cool concepts, I'm starting to see the lines begin to blur. So I wanted to see if we could come up with some sort of like categorization, right? Okay. So on the episode about the 7 deadly sins and the 7 princes of hell, I managed to come up with 7 different categories for devils and demons that we've already explored and ones we're going to explore in the future. And so here they are.
So you made little subcategories. This is going to feel really real to people.
Yeah.
Because now it's little bullet points. Great.
Right? It's official because it's boring.
All right, so part 1.
Part 1, yes. Right. Okay, so first one is, first category is scriptural, right? This means that they are in the holy texts, right? So in the Christian Bible, but also the Jewish Tanakh, the Quran of Islam. So they are in the text. Maybe just the name, like Satan or Lucifer, but they are in there. Right?
Okay.
Now, then you got apocryphal. These are demons found in the apocryphal texts. Remember, apocrypha refers to religious texts which are not included in the accepted canons of Scripture, like in Judaism, Christianity, or Islam, right? So stuff like the Book of Tobit, the Book of Enoch, the Gospel of Mary, the Gospel of Judas, and, hey, the Testament of Solomon, right?
Testament of Solomon? What are you doing here?
Hey. Oh, I'm just, I'm building the temple.
Still?
Yeah. But so we got scriptural, apocryphal, then we got appropriational, meaning they existed as gods or beings of another religion and were appropriated into demons, right? So like Moloch or Beelzebub, right? Yeah. Then you got allegorical, basically just, personifications of their own name. Like mammon is just the word for money.
Right.
And Belial literally just means worthless. And I'm differentiating this from Satan, right? We know that just means enemy or adversary, but I'm separating them because there are times when we're reading the text and we're like, okay, is this a Satan or the Satan, right? But with Mammon, for example, I'm almost positive that the writers of that part in the Bible meant to say money and we mistranslated it. So allegorical is when even the writers would be like, no, you guys misunderstood. Belial was never meant to be a demon. I'm just saying that this person is worthless. That's all.
Okay. That's a judgment call, but like a lot of the times in the new international version of the Bible, like they've gone back and taken out capital demon names and just changed it to like, so Mammon is like that.
Right, exactly, yeah, precisely. And then you got mythical. So not religious, at least not anymore, but there are legends and folk tales out there. So I'm thinking like Krampus is one example, or the Dybbuk in Jewish folklore, right?
Okay.
He's not mentioned in the holy texts, but like there is like mythology about the Dybbuk. Right?
Okay, that makes sense. Or the Golem, or I guess some modern ones, because I want to look at the Jersey Devil eventually. So he's like he's like a cryptid. So that might be like some people believe in Sasquatch,
but still mythical because the oldest stuff that we have of them is like is legend.
Right. Yeah.
Right. It's not like in any kind of like text that is either holy or apocryphal.
Right.
And then we got literary, literally made up by an author for the purpose of entertainment.
So literary is literally made up.
Yeah.
Literarily.
Perfect. I'm thinking of Dante. I'm thinking of Milton. We're going to be reading Marlowe's Faust next. And there you go. Mephistopheles. He's a perfect example of a literary demon. Right?
I haven't read ahead. So he's not in the Bible anywhere?
Nope.
Or? Wow.
Nope, he was made up.
Oh, so yeah, I'm learning stuff on my own show.
Wake
up, right? Keenan, you're recording. You're not listening, you're recording. You're on the show right now.
Keenan.
Oh, I'm sorry. We were talking about being apocryphal?
That was 10 minutes ago. But yeah, so that's literary, right? And then lastly, we got fabricated, a.k.a. Baphomet fake, which is even lower than fiction because it's fiction that's not for the purpose of entertainment. It's false accusations, false confessions, hearsay. It's all the stuff surrounding people getting tortured and or killed. So, like the Salem witch trials, right? There's so much new witchy lore that came out of the witch trials, which suspiciously you can't find anywhere else. That's because, it was all from false confessions and false accusations.
Oh, that's interesting. I'm kind of reeling by this groupings you made here, but I think it works. Let me think. Like Slender Man would be fabricated instead of mythical. Like the people who invented it were like coming up with a hoax, or
was he part of a game first?
No, he came from a creepypasta first.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
And then the games came later.
Okay, so a creepypasta. Now, like a creepypasta claiming to be real, or it's like, hey, this is a cool, spooky story?
I believe so. I think that the creepypastas started because they claimed to be real, right? Or I guess like the Momo meme would be more of the fabricated, like clearly fabricated, like Momo, Momo the evil, yeah. Like that was one that people fabricated to start a moral panic, really.
Okay, yeah, there we go. Yeah, that's we can also count that too, right? Like
that's interesting. Yeah,
satanic panic and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, cool. So I think that just about anything that we could think of would fit into one of your 7 categories. That's really, really great, Lester.
Yay! I feel very proud. Which is one of the 7 deadly sins.
But if you can think of another category, I mean, write into us. But you're going to ruin Lester's 7 here. So
maybe don't. But if you can fix it to make it sound to make it fit even better, then I'd be
right.
happy. Yeah.
And they could write us at bananaforscalemail@gmail.com.
Right. That's mail, MAIL. Right. Like the mail they wore in the Crusades.
That's right.
and not the one which they believe to be superior to everything and anything. Anyway. Okay, so there you go, folks. That's my 7 levels of fake, right? We got scriptural, apocryphal, appropriational, allegorical, mythical, literary, and fabricated. Yeah? And again, like when I say fake in reference to scripture, I don't mean the holy text itself. I mean like our understanding or our misunderstanding of the holy text, right? Like Lucifer is technically scriptural because the word is there, but it's probably not a reference to the devil, right?
Right.
Or like even though Satan does show up, that could be just because most stories have an antagonist. That's literally what that word means, right? So the Satan of Job might be a completely different character from all the other Satans, right? It'd be like, a million years from now, aliens are studying our civilization, right? And they're like, we found evidence of this being that appears to be the source of all the strife and suffering down on Earth. They called him Asshole. And he's like everywhere. His name just shows up again and again in our records. Sometimes it's capitalized, sometimes it's in all caps. So I don't know. Apparently he makes people bad drivers, but he also possesses like politicians and ex-lovers. It's just
he possesses themselves sometimes. Or like I was asshole today.
Yeah.
Or on Reddit there's that am I the asshole thread, right?
Oh right, yeah.
Yeah. So and they had
people were doing trials of themselves.
Right, exactly. And they put it up for popular vote. It was a democratic system where people would have their own witch trials, their own asshole trials.
and if they were deemed an asshole, then they were sent to the fire wall. And there was this thing called the Flame Wars. And apparently they believed in trolls. I don't know. It's just
right.
But yeah. So that's my 7 categories. So now let's get into our 7 princes of hell, or I guess Peter Binsfeld's 7 princes of hell. Right? So obviously we're working with the 7 deadly sins, also referred to as the 7 capital vices. We're probably most familiar with them as a Christian concept, but we actually had similar ideas from the ancient Greeks and the ancient Romans. Now in Christian tradition, they are defined as immoral behaviors which separate one from God and which lead to more sin. That's an important factor. So like keep that in mind. Whereas like a venial sin, like gossiping or telling little white lies, might hurt your relationship with God, a deadly sin could sever your relationship with God and open up the way to mortal sins like murder, adultery, and not going to church on Sunday. I'm seeing a little bit of an inconsistency with that last one. But yeah, for this reason, the 7 deadly sins were considered, I guess the modern term is gateway sins.
Right.
Yeah. Which, like, at first I was skeptical. I was like, wait a minute. Like, how is sloth deadlier than murder, right? Like, you can be prideful or gluttonous and still adhere to the 10 Commandments, right? The Golden Rule. Jesus or Moses never named these 7 sins specifically as deadly. And in fact, they are less like active sins and more like states of being. Right? They're not verbs. They're, you killed, you lied, you stole, right? They're adjectives. You are prideful, slothful, envious, etc., right? However, maybe it does make more sense based on the fact that these sins can lead you to other sins, right? Like lust can drive you to commit murder. Greed can drive you to commit murder, you know?
Well, it's like, these are, you say the things you can be. They're things you could have. You could have lust. You could have wrath.
Yeah.
Like you can have a genius maybe instead of like you are a genius. Right?
Oh, yeah, right. I was filled with wrath. I was filled with envy. Yeah,
right. I could feel gluttony take over me. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
But also, I think a mortal sin though is worse than a deadly sin, right? Because a mortal sin is like for your mortal soul, right?
Right. Yeah.
They're going to attack your mortal soul. So a deadly sin is stuff for here on earth, but mortal is higher because it's your afterlife stuff.
Right. And that's why I was confused by this word deadly.
Right.
But I guess what they're saying is it's like a slippery slope. It opens the way to the mortal sins.
Right.
So the mortal sins are more severe, but the deadly sins are kind of like it's a hop, skip, and a jump. Right.
Yeah. But I think, when I speak to a lot of, Christians today, they think differently than Christians in the past. I'm not trying to speak for all Christians back then or even call all Christians today, right? But like the deadly sins today, they feel like the bigger ones for a lot of people. Like you dying is a big deal as opposed to back in, the 1500s, it wasn't, you dying was not that big of a deal. Because it was like, well, the next thing is the more important thing. It's the afterlife. It's the what's going to happen to your soul afterwards.
Yeah. That was back in the day when like parents could lose, several children.
Right. The majority of your children.
Right. And it was almost like it was understood that like if you're a parent, you're not going to get to have all of your kids. You're going to lose a couple of them.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like there was a point in history when like the value of a single human life was vastly lower on our scale of like priorities than it is today. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
But yeah. So we decided on these 7 deadly sins, right? But what are they? Like what, how does a sin get to be one of the 7 deadly sins? So a few centuries earlier, this monk named Evagrius, I think is the right way to say it, he coined, quote, 8 evil thoughts, which Pope Gregory then streamlined in his text Moralia to the 7 deadly sins. So let's thank Evagrius and Papa G.
Okay.
All right, for the 7 deadly sins, right? And then in the 13th century, our old buddy Thomas Aquinas picks this list up again, dusts it off, makes a few little additions, and then retweets it just like he did with the snake and the fallen angels. Remember, he wasn't the first, but man, his tweets, if you get retweeted by Thomas Aquinas, you can be sure it's going to reach people.
Right. So this is nowhere near as impressive as your 7 categories of fake here. But I was really trying, as an educator, one of my pet peeves with the 7 deadly sins is that they're not ranked or anything.
No.
So everyone's list is like in different orders.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like they are ranked by each individual who ranks them.
Right. But nobody agrees with everybody else's.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was looking at yours, and so you have it in a certain order, which we'll get to, but like it also makes it hard to try to remember them. It's like naming the 7 doors, right? So I was trying to come up with a mnemonic device.
Oh, okay.
So in the order you have, it is, what is it? Pride, greed, lust, envy, gluttony, wrath, sloth.
Yes.
And I could not think of a mnemonic device for that, but PGLEGWS. So if you at home have one, that'd be really great.
PGLE.
GWS.
GWS.
Yeah. So what I've done is I've rearranged them to PWGGLES, which spells Pwiggles.
Pwiggles. As soon as you said that, I saw in my mind the evilest little baby Job. And he's just there at the council, right?
Yeah.
With his 6 other I guess co-princes,
Right.
according to Binsfeld. And he's like, my fellow princes, I have invented Pwiggles.
Right. Hey, you could put them on the ends of your fingers.
Yes.
And have little Pwiggle hands, little Pwiggle fingers.
Mammon and Beelzebub's like, what's so special about Pwiggles? My lord.
They don't want to deign to say it.
Right.
Like,
Well, they have to say it because the W is in there.
Right.
Wrath starts, it sounds like it starts with an R, but it doesn't.
No.
Yeah. That's when Satan invented wrath. He was like, I'm going to put a W here.
Right, just sounds more hardcore.
Yes. Wrath. Yeah. Right. It looks like how does this like why are they separate from the other sins, my lord? Right? And Lord Satan says, well, it's because once you pop, you can't stop. Oh, and folks, okay, we're going on about this whole order thing, but so actually, Keenan, what you don't know is I changed the order, like the official order by the Church of the 7 deadly sins to match.
Oh, there is one.
There is. Like it was in another source that I was looking at, and they had the order differently from Peter Binsfeld's order of the princes. So I changed it to match the princes. So this is Binsfeld's like order of the 7 princes.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
It's not the same as the order of the 7 deadly sins.
Gotcha. Yeah. But I think the point remains, right? Like if you go to someone and you have your order, they might be like, "That's not my order," but no one agrees with their order. No one agrees with anybody's order. Yeah, and they don't even agree with what the princes are. Some of them don't even agree what the sins are still. In 2024. Right.
That's the other. And we're gonna get to that, folks. This is not the first. Lantern of Light was the first to have the 7 princes, nor is it the last. After Peter Binsfeld, there are more. There are people like swapping them around, adding new ones, subtracting ones. The Lesser Key of Solomon and the Ars Goetia. Now you got 72, and now you got not just kings, but you got dukes, and you got presidents, and kings and princes, and one knight.
He's still good, guys. He's smart.
He's
still sin.
I'm not extraneous like everybody says. Yeah. But yeah, so for this episode, specifically looking at Peter Binsfeld's categorization, so the 7 princes aligning with the 7 deadly sins.
So I think aping Fredo helped me with our Pwiggles a little bit, right? Yeah. Okay. So imagine this is like someone who's super jealous of you getting buffer all the time. Okay. Please, good God, Lester's even sexier.
You know what? Even though you came up with that one and I didn't, I'm gonna, I'll take that one. Yeah. I will say that's better than mine. Because I'm so prideful.
So prideful.
Yeah.
Lester's even sexier. Throwing a little tantrum at the gym or wherever they see you, at the beach or something.
These guys was like, oh man, as soon as they start doing new episodes, we can get away from this little baby voice.
We've been airing this baby voice for a year and a half.
Yeah, no, folks, we've been practicing. Okay. Let's look at these sins
Great.
and these princes. Yeah. So first we got pride, also known as the father of all sin. Interesting, right? Now specifically, this is referring to ego or hubris. So back in the Greek and Roman tales, anyone presuming to be on equal footing with the gods is summarily and sometimes hilariously put in their place. I'm thinking of our buddy Capaneus in Dante, right? Who challenged Jove and got struck by lightning.
Come at me, Jove.
Yeah.
What, Jove? You want to take this outside, Jove?
Jove sounds so much like bro. It's like, yeah. But yeah, so pride, right? And on a deeper level, pride can lead to a lack of humility and also empathy. So others are seen as less than. It's the exact opposite of, the golden rule. Treat others as you would like to be treated. Why? I'm better than them, right?
Right.
Which makes Lucifer the perfect prince for pride. And of course, we know Lucifer. We just read Paradise Lost, probably the biggest influence on the character of the prideful fallen angel. We also learned in our very first episode that he's not in the Bible. Remember, Isaiah 14:12 is the only time that name is mentioned, and it's referring to the planet Venus. But by this time, thanks to folks like, St. Thomas Aquinas, we had accepted him as canon. However, some scholars who later took this idea of the seven princes and ran with it place Azazel as the prince of pride. And I know you're thinking, wait, how can it be anybody but Lucifer, right? The devil, Satan. Well, there's another prince coming up that sort of throws everything I thought I knew all out of whack. But we'll talk about that when we get to him. So sit tight.
Yeah, but everyone's trying to make their own fit their other stuff they got going on, which was the trouble.
Yeah.
We'll get to this, I'm sure. Like King James of the Bible had his own listings of demons and
Right.
including things like fairies that we wouldn't consider demons today. And he's trying to match that with the seven deadly sins. Anton LaVey has four sins, four princes of hell rather. Because 4 is so 7 is some kind of magical number for the people who are writing this, but 4 for LaVey is like, well, it's north, south, east, west, fire, water, earth, air, easy peasy, right?
Right.
Why are we doing any other princes?
Yeah. Easy peasy, Beelzebub. Yeah.
Right. But as Azazel, I don't know him well enough. He's pride, I guess. He's prideful.
In some classifications.
The ones where they need a prince to represent pride.
Yeah,
he's the prideful one.
The ones where, well, I can't say anything because this other one is just kind of, he's sitting there staring at me and he's like, what are you going to get to me? I was like,
all right, great.
Give it up. But next, let's talk about greed. Right? Now, unlike gluttony or lust, it focuses more on the desire for money, possessions, etc. So things that you can have, things that you can hold, right? And this, according to the church, leads to a chain of venial sins: lying, cheating, stealing, manipulating, and also mortal sins like murder. Actually, I think all of these, like I said, right, can eventually lead to murder, right?
I'd like to think of a situation where sloth leads to murder.
Actually, that's a good point, right?
Yeah.
Well,
that's my favorite.
Yeah.
Just sit around.
Yeah. I think it's the one that I keep accidentally doing.
Well, that's the whole problem, I guess.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, but if I could, you're telling me I don't get to go to heaven and I get to sit around and do nothing?
Well, I don't know if your punishment for sloth is going to be more sloth.
Oh, yeah.
I think it might be. I think we might have like a contrapasso situation going on here.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Might have to, run a few marathons or something.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Become one of those people with the 26.2 sticker on the back of my car.
There you go, right? Yeah. All victims of sloth in a past life. Now they're forced to buy those really, really short shorts. Yeah. But anyway, we're talking about greed, right?
Right.
Now, early European theologians are cited as saying that other than the devil, there is no greater enemy to man than the desire for money. In these theological conversations, usury was commonly brought up. Remember, folks, we learned in Dante that usury is the practice of charging interest on a loan. Yeah. And so the Prince of Greed is none other than Mammon.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, right. Now, folks, you'll also remember him from Paradise Lost. He is one of the members of the Grand Council in Book 2. It is he who suggests that they all use the gold and precious metals in hell to build the Palace of Pandemonium. The word mammon is mentioned a total of 4 times in the Bible, once in Matthew and 3 times in Luke. And in all of them, mammon just means money or earthly riches. So he was never a demon. Jesus never named him as a demon. He's not even a foreign god like Moloch or Beelzebub. Mammon wasn't a name. It wasn't a proper noun. It was just a regular noun in both Hebrew and Aramaic. It just meant money. So like in Matthew 6:24, Jesus says, "No one can serve 2 masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and mammon," which, if you look at more modern translations, like you said, Keenan, they actually just replace mammon with money.
Right.
Yeah. But that's no fun. We're here to look at the 7 princes of hell.
Yeah,
right?
rock stars.
Yeah. So yeah, much later in the Middle Ages, religious scholars and demonologists, they decided it was the name of a demon, right? Just like they did for adversary or worthless, right? Specifically, they decided he was a demon of wealth and riches and greed. And then Peter Binsfeld and the writer of The Lantern of Light added the finishing touch, and they said, no. Mammon is the demon of greed and one of the 7 princes. Because that's just more fun.
It also, frankly, lets you get off easier as we're in the medieval ages, and now we know that you need usury, you need interest. That's just now the world exists in a place where it's pretty difficult. You can't just build a house out in the middle of the forest, and that's your house. You have to buy land in the middle of the city, and so you need money just to exist. So it's much easier to let yourself off the hook and say, like, well, yeah, no, it's not about money, or even the love of money. It's about a demon out there somewhere.
Right. Yeah, he's out there. He's looking at his little Wicked Witch of the West crystal ball, and he's wringing his hands, and he's like, I'm gonna make this guy ask for more than he needs. And,
right. Yeah, so the version of money that I have, whatever that is, whether I am a beggar on the street who needs money to eat, or whether I am working class and need my money from selling my wares, or whether I'm middle class and like rent out a house, or have a bank that charges interest or whatever, that's fine. But it's these other people above me who are under the spell of mammon.
Yes, exactly. And yeah, folks, I did the whole spiel about, mammon meaning money because that's what I'm trying to get at, is that because of how mammon was created, you can't be like, oh, I'm going to, go back and read the stories with mammon in them, right? I'm going to read about that one time that mammon tempted Peter and Andrew. You can't.
Right.
You can't, because those stories don't exist, right? Mammon never shows up as a character. It's not like Jesus says, oh, you can't serve both God and mammon, and then mammon appears in a puff of brimstone like, sure you can, right? So even though his name shows up in the Bible, I hesitate to call him scriptural. And he's also not appropriational. He wasn't a god in another religion. And he's not even mythical, right? There aren't any legends or stories about him, right? In fact, Paradise Lost, the 17th century epic poem that we covered on this show, is only the 2nd time we see him as a walking, talking character. First time is Edmund Spenser's The Fairy Queen. That's near the end of the 16th century, 1590, so practically the 17th century, which means that Mammon is allegorical, bordering on literary, which, I'm a little bummed about. I thought we were going to, find some cool stuff on him. But apparently we already read his 2nd oldest story. But I can't help it. I'm greedy for more.
Oh, you can't serve Mammon and podcast at the same time.
Oh. But I can try.
But these things shift. You're talking about Edmund Spenser's The Fairy Queen. That's about Gloriana, who is his version of Queen Elizabeth, and then she dies, and the entire English crown goes to Catholics and goes to King James, and then he's like, fairies are demons.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So these things change all the time.
And Mammon's in there, so it's like, oh, well, he's yeah. So that's actually weird because so Mammon, the word, started out in the Bible, and then he gets made into like a fairy-ish creature in The Fairy Queen, and then he's brought back to a demon by King James.
Yeah, and I was also seeing that a lot of the medieval writers who wanted Mammon to be a demon and were like just flat out saying like in the Bible Mammon is a demon, and even though it doesn't say that, like, but they would write like, your guide to reading the Bible, this is what you need to know. Mammon means a demon. Mammon's the name of a demon. But they also started giving him qualities like Plutus, the god of wealth from Greek mythology. Yeah, so they just started saying, well, like if this is a personified personified demon of money. Let's just go to the closest thing we have of a demon of money, which is Plutus. And
Right.
yeah, so things just get melted together and mixed up, and then it does give it this aura of scripturalism.
Right. Yeah. If it sounds kind of like old timey, if it sounds like the Greek and Roman legends, then it has this like sheen of authenticity to it, right?
Yeah. I mean, we do that today. I don't know if I said it on this show or the Exorcist show, right? But like we do that with Shakespearean type language today because that's the language of the Bible. So if you piss somebody off and you cut in line accidentally at the bank or something, right? He might say, "Hey, buddy, fuck you," right? But if he's like, "Hey, buddy, I condemn thee to hell."
Yeah.
Right. It gives the sheen of like, oh, I have the authority of like God or have the authority of righteousness, even though we're saying the same thing.
Right. Right. And in which case I might let that person have that specimen and just back away. I might decide that I don't need to be at the bank today and just go on my way. Yeah.
Right. But when they say these and thous, it feels like scripture, even though it's not. It's just Jamesian English.
Right. Yeah. Right. But yeah. But folks, I hear you. When are Lester and Keenan going to talk about lust? Now, this is differentiated from
passion. You can hear them at home going, please. Please,
Lester. We're getting into somebody's specific kink here.
Keenan, when are you going to talk about lust?
Oh yeah, that's the other W sin, right? Is lust. God. But yeah. Now, the church differentiated lust from passion. Lust is an immoral desire, whereas passion is natural and God-given, and in fact, the driving force for the continuation of humanity, right?
Okay.
Lust, in this case, specifically referred to adultery, rape, seduction, etc., right? But as the idea of this sin evolved, it came to stand for all things related to sexual pleasure. And folks, when I think of sexual pleasure, I, of course, think of our good buddy Asmodeus.
Right.
But like, this is what I'm talking about. Like when I'm talking about the authenticity of demons, like this guy has been around. Well, yeah, he's lust, but what I mean is like he is established. He is in the apocryphal texts, like the Book of Tobit. Remember, that's the story where he gets catfished. By Tobias, and our buddy the Archangel Raphael, right? Yeah, but we might also remember him from the Testament of Solomon, where Solomon apparently also read that story and tortures him with a catfish while forcing him to help build the Temple of Israel again. But Asmodeus gets his revenge, pre-venge. Or alternate timeline venge in the Talmud, where he punches Solomon into the stratosphere, Dragon Ball Z style, disguises himself as Solomon and sleeps with all of his wives and his mother. Still trying to wrap my head around that.
How dare you sleep with my wives, and how dare you sleep with my mother? That's my job.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Like, and his mom is like, I thought you were my son, but you tricked me. What? Yeah.
But in case you don't remember, that might have all been a screed against his mother, Bathsheba, because she was a foreigner. She was from Hittite.
Oh, okay. So that might have been Hittite, like, right. Like, see that, like Bathsheba would do that, but we, the chosen people, we would not do that.
Right. I, Solomon, would not do
Solomon,
that.
Right? Yeah. So Asmodeus is definitely apocryphal, and because of the Talmud, he is one of the few scriptural demons.
Right.
He is a walking, talking, punching character in the holy text.
Yeah, that's interesting. So he's one of the few ones that is scriptural. And I was seeing in some versions of the Talmud that he is the king of the demons or classes of demons.
Yes, he is specifically named, as the king of demons.
Yeah.
He also fits the mythical category. There's some tales in Jewish folklore where he marries Lilith. And she becomes his queen, which we gotta do a whole thing on her, right? Like just all on its own. And sooner rather than later, I think. Maybe right after Faust. What do you think?
I like it. I'm fascinated by Lilith. I don't know enough about her, so that'd be great.
But yeah, folks, so that's Asmodeus, right? He gets more screen time or more page time, more ink, let's say,
right.
than Lucifer or Satan. In fact, this has led some scholars to believe that he is the devil. Which I love how we're learning that the devil is a moving goalpost. And whenever we find a cooler, older story, we're just like, well, that's obviously the devil before we knew him as the devil, right? And like you say, Keenan, like he's referred to as the king of demons in some Jewish texts, but it's like, oh, but really, he's our king of demons, right? Like can't he be his own thing, guys? Right? But I guess he is because, today we see him as separate from the devil. And now, thanks to writers like Binsfeld, he is the prince of lust. In most artistic depictions, he's got like a humanoid shape, like the body of a man with 3 heads. The middle is of a man, and then on either side, it's the head of a bull and a ram, right? So it's very, very bestial, bestial. Right? So moving on from lust, we got envy. Now, envy here is defined as a desire for what others have leading to sadness. It could also be wishing others didn't have something. That was something I never thought of. It's like, well, I don't, like, if I can't have it, I don't want you to have it, right? And there's like, it's like people who are delighting in, other people's downfall and stuff like that. Like the Schadenfreude and all of that.
It's both. I want what you have, and I want to take it from you. I want you to not have the thing, and I want to have it.
Yeah. It's not that like you have a cool car and like I want a cool car too, so that we both have cool cars.
Yeah, that we could be cool car bros.
Yeah, I'm not your bro. I either want to have your cool car,
right,
or I want to get a cool car and then your cool car get like totaled or something.
Right.
That's I think at the root of this.
Right. I don't want to have a mom that I have sex with. I want to have your mom that you have sex with.
Right. and folks, that's the origin of the joke. Your mom.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's in the Bible, or apocryphal at least. Yeah. Right. Your mom is apocryphal. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah. Okay. So the sin of envy is ruled by another scriptural question mark. Demon? Question mark?
Okay.
This is Leviathan. Right? He is the prince of envy for some reason. Actually, we know it's partially due to our buddy Thomas Aquinas.
Okay.
He at one point tweeted that Leviathan is the demon responsible for punishing those guilty of the sin of envy by swallowing them whole. Again, I'm trying to find the contrapasso here. Right? But maybe it's lost on us in the 21st century. Or maybe they were just making this up. Right?
Yeah, I had trouble. I couldn't find why Leviathan is envy. So if he just because he punishes people who exhibit envy doesn't mean that he also envies, in my mind.
And also, why is he the one punishing people for, I feel like the swallowing them whole is some kind of poetic thing. But I don't understand it,
He's not gluttony.
He's not gluttony, right? Yeah. Actually, okay, Keenan, our prince of envy and our prince of gluttony are sometimes switched around.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. So I mean, we haven't gotten to our gluttony guy yet, but that might make more sense, right? Because Leviathan has also been described as the mouth of hell itself, right? And Anglo-Saxon artists took the idea of the mouth of hell, right, the jaws of hell, which was already a thing. And I love how as time passes, we can see the streamlining begin to happen, right? You have these two things that are kind of similar, right? You got Leviathan with his big mouth, and then you got these artistic depictions in the Middle Ages of the mouth of hell, the mouth of some kind of dragon, and people were like, "Hey, you know what?" And they just put them together.
Okay.
But yeah, Leviathan, he's the prince of envy because.
Yeah, but I wish they would square that circle for us. So he's a sea demon.
Yeah.
So I wish they would say, and so he's jealous of those who can live on land, but they don't say that. But that's not anywhere. I kept trying to find something like that.
Yeah. But yeah, folks, we know Leviathan from the Old Testament or the Tanakh. He features in Job, Psalms, and Isaiah. Again, getting more page time than Lucifer. Right? And he is described as some sort of sea monster, like a serpent or a dragon of the sea. Leviathan, the piercing serpent. Even Leviathan, that crooked serpent. This is Isaiah 27, right? Or the dragon that is in the sea. But it also talks about how God made him and set him in the ocean to play.
Right.
There is that Leviathan whom thou hast made to play therein, the sea.
Is that Psalm 104, perhaps? Is that the...
Yep,
Yeah.
That's Psalm 104.
That's about how great God is because he made everything, including Leviathan.
Yeah, right? So talking about, like his good acts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The Leviathan is so big, so giant that God who made it is even greater than that. That's how I think that's supposed to be.
Exactly, right? And like made him put him in the sea to play like his pet.
Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm.
And some depictions have him with multiple heads because of this passage. Quote, "Thou breakest the heads of Leviathan in pieces." This is Psalm 74. But, okay, I have a theory, right? Knowing nothing about ancient Hebrew or how it uses plurals, could an equally valid translation be, quote, "Thou breakest the heads of all the Leviathan in pieces"?
Mm-hmm.
Because remember, folks, like our buddies on the Apocryphals tell us that the word for sea monster and the word for whale are the same.
Yep.
So could the plural for Leviathan be Leviathan? Like God breaks the heads of the Leviathan. Are we just talking about whales?
I would love to hear otherwise, but I think that might be right. Like the way that they like in the Tanakh say man when they mean both a man and man as a group, as a class.
Right, yeah.
All right, I'd like to know the difference. I'm not saying that we solved that here, but if anyone knows the answer to that.
Yeah, so please write in and let us know. But yeah, I mean, I think that's something that has fascinated people for a while, right? They speculate that Behemoth could just be an elephant and Leviathan could be a whale. And when you go back and look at all the mentions of Leviathan in the texts, it could very well be. It's like, oh, God is so great. He made this creature, the Leviathan, right? But like Leviathan as in plural, like he made the whales.
Right.
And he let them play in the ocean, right? And he's so strong he could break, but he won't break their heads because he's nice, right? Yeah. But like he could, right? Yeah. In this psalm about how great he is, right?
So I did see that, in the Jewish text, it's Leviathan, which is akin to a whale or a sea serpent or something out there. That is, just hard to see, hard to know, right? And then in the Christian texts, which come significantly later, potentially they knew the sea a little bit more. And they start referring or equating Leviathan to something that we might call like a dragon today.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're encountering like, okay, there's this idea of Leviathan, and okay, it's not a whale. It must be something unknowable. So that's where it gets to be like sea monster, huge sea monsters and huge dragons, and to sort of square that circle.
Yeah. Yeah. And it could all be just kind of like, because of the passage of time and because, the original writers aren't there to ask anymore. But it's like, to them, it's like, wow, this thing is the biggest thing we've ever seen, right?
Right.
And then once you've lived a life and live in a world where, whales are not, like a special thing anymore, you're like, well, no, they can't be talking about whales. They must be talking about dragons, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And they have 7 heads now.
Yeah.
This Leviathan has 7 heads now. Yeah.
Right. What do you mean? No, we're not copying from the Hydra. No. No, this is our thing. Look, thou breakest the heads of the Leviathan. It's singular. I know it for sure. Right. But yeah, folks, that's Leviathan. He is the prince of envy.
You have a boat. Fuck you.
It's just, again, like he seems like of all the demons who would have the least to envy about anybody. Like, we want him to be so great and so amazing, and twisted and tortured, but in a pretty badass sort of a way, I would say, as opposed to Asmodeus. And we're just like, and he envies you, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, he looks at your little motorcycle jacket and he's like, "Oh, I wish I had that motorcycle jacket."
Because you're not like a giant, awesome sea monster that could literally swallow anything whole,
right?
And whom God loves and set in the ocean to play. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, also Keenan, like, we're talking about like so he's one of the princes of hell.
Right.
Right. You're having your hellish council, and all the princes have to attend. Right. Our guy at Sloth. Right. He's home on Zoom because.
Good for him.
Yeah, right.
You know what? Good for him.
Yeah. Right. But
he gets just as much done as anybody else around here.
Right. In his PJs or half his PJs. Right.
Right.
Yeah. But Keenan, like at these meetings, how does Leviathan, like, do they always meet at his place? The sea? Yeah. Anyway, okay. So we were talking about like he's more appropriate for gluttony, right?
I would imagine so.
Yeah. So okay, let's talk about gluttony, right? Now this gluttony is defined specifically as overindulgence and waste, right? So not just food, but like all excess. And there's actually like several different types of gluttony, and our boy Thomas Aquinas categorized them for us because of course he did.
Loves those categories.
So there is the eating of too much food, of course, right? But there's also eating food that's too expensive or exotic.
Okay.
Eating food that requires elaborate preparation.
Okay.
Eating food at an inappropriate time. Like, my question is, what time is an inappropriate time?
Maybe that's not like 8 o'clock. Maybe it's like funerals or.
Okay, I see.
During the time we're sacrificing the lamb to God, and then we're in the corner. We're not eating the lamb, but we're eating, honey or something.
I see.
Slurping it down.
Right. Or during the witch trials. It's
just uncouth.
Yeah.
Or like we're burning the witch, and then we're eating the fruit that we got off of her table. Oh, she had really good taste.
I thought you were gonna say like we're burning the witch, and then we got like a marshmallow on a stick, and we're. It's like, you can't. This is solemn. This is serious. You can't do that.
Right.
Gluttony. That's gluttony. Lastly, eating food too eagerly. But yeah, so basically, just enjoying food too much.
Right, okay.
And folks, can you guess who the Prince of Gluttony is? You have met him before on this show twice, actually, I think. Once in the Testament of Solomon and again in Paradise Lost. I think he is a personal favorite for both myself and Keenan. He is none other than our companion deer, Beelzebub. Now, we know him today as Lord of the Flies. Very cool, very metal, very nice, very evil. But we also know that name was originally meant to be an insult. The Canaanites addressed many of their gods as Baal, which literally just meant Lord.
Okay.
And one of their gods was Beelzebub, which simply meant Lord of the Heavens or Lord of the Skies. So actually, this really cool, scary metal name we now associate with evil and darkness comes from the ancient Hebrews being like, Beelzebub, more like Beelzebub, because you guys are flies, like swarming around a piece of poop. We're saying your God is a piece of poop.
No, our God's not a piece of poop. Your God's a piece of poop.
Wait a minute, guys. Your mom. Boom!
I don't understand those two words together like that.
And there was much wailing and gnashing of teeth in the outer darkness. But yeah, so quick language note. So Zebul means exalted dwelling or high place, right? And Zebub means fly. Right?
Okay.
And so actually, this solves another riddle for me, folks. You might have heard Lord of High Places used in reference to the Christian devil. I remember hearing it in Stephen King's The Stand. Mother Abigail calls Randall Flagg the Lord of High Places. And I was like, what? Is that like a devil thing, like high places? And yeah, that's one of the devil's titles now, is the Lord of High Places. It was taken from Beelzebub's original name when he was another god. So now our devil gets to be both the Lord of the Flies and the Lord of High Places.
Yeah, the high places is counterintuitive to me because we think of hell as being below.
Exactly, right? The only thing I could think was like, when he takes Jesus up onto the top of the hill or something, like maybe, I don't know.
In Paradise Regained?
Yeah, like in the Bible.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. But yeah, and okay, here's another thing about Beelzebub. We remember from our Testament of Solomon episodes that there was a time when Beelzebub or Beelzebul was regarded as the prince of demons or the exarch of demons. And actually, I don't think we mentioned this in those episodes because remember, that was before we actually were thinking of doing like a show about the history of the devil. But I went back and I checked, and if I'm right about this, this is crazy. Remember, we said Testament of Solomon was written way later, probably between the 1st and the 3rd century. I'm now seeing scholars speculating that it could be as late as the 5th century. So way after Solomon's time, way after Jesus' time, way after the establishment of Christianity and the completion of the Bible. But, and here's the crazy part, possibly before we were thinking of Satan as the devil. There was a devil by this time. There was a prince of demons, a big bad enemy of God, but it wasn't Satan. So who was it? We get a clue from the Testament of Solomon, this obviously fake text written by early Christians making allusions to Jesus and, directly referencing the actual Gospels. It names Beelzebub as the devil, prince and exarch of demons, once an angel in the highest heaven, meaning it's possible that Beelzebub was Satan, before Job's the Satan.
Okay.
So, folks, remember, we already got like Asmodeus being referred to in Jewish texts as the king of demons. And now, in this very obviously Christian text, Testament of Solomon, we have no mention of Satan, but instead it's Beelzebub as the prince or the exarch of demons. That means that Job's Satan is like the third character to get the title of ruler of all demons.
Okay.
And again, folks, the Bible's finished, right? It's done by the time Testament of Solomon is written. So that means there was a time when not only did the early Hebrews not see the Satan as the Satan, but neither did the early Christians. So all of those other mentions of Satan in the Bible, even in the New Testament, right? So get behind me, Satan. Early Christians' eyes were just like glossing over those, like, nope, that has nothing to do with Beelzebub. They didn't think of the word Satan in that way yet, even though it was there in the Bible.
Right.
And, okay, here's another clue. This is in Mark. Now, Mark is the earliest gospel, and it's the only one to use the word Satan in the temptation story. Luke and Matthew just say tempter or devil in Greek, right? Diabolos. Right?
Okay.
Mark is the only one to use hosatanas, right? A Greek version of the Hebrew Satan. So, yes, according to Mark, a Satan came to Jesus in the desert. But which Satan? Now let's look at this other passage in Mark. This is Mark 3:22-26.
Right.
And the scribes who came down from Jerusalem said, "He is possessed by Beelzebul, and by the prince of demons he casts out the demons. And he called them to him and said to them in parables, 'How can Satan cast out Satan? If a kingdom is divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. And if a house is divided against itself, that house will not be able to stand. And if Satan has risen up against himself and is divided, he cannot stand, but is coming to an end.'" Okay, so here we have both words. We have the scribes clearly marking Beelzebul as the leader of demons, but then Jesus uses the word Satan. So scholars are like, oh, okay, he's clearly saying that Beelzebub is capital S, Satan. But here's where I theorize, again, with my limited knowledge of these languages and the historical context, etc., that Jesus is simply calling Beelzebub the enemy. So let's read that again, right? The scribes say, "He is possessed by Beelzebul, and by the prince of demons he casts out the demons," right? And he called to them and he said to them in parables, "How can our enemy, a.k.a. Beelzebul, cast out our enemy? If a kingdom is divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. And if a house is divided against itself, that house will not be able to stand. And if our enemy has risen up against himself and is divided, he cannot stand, but is coming to an end." That seems just as valid as if you put Satan in there. But yeah, that's why it's actually kind of important that we figure out when the Testament of Solomon was actually written. Like, yeah, it's obviously a phony story. It wasn't written by Solomon. It was written by Christians, but apparently by Christians who still thought of Beelzebub as the king of demons. So my question is, how long did we think that? Testament of Solomon is thought to be written anywhere from 100 to 1,000 years after the last gospel, meaning potentially 1,000 years where it's Beelzebub and not Satan who is the leader of demons in Christianity.
Right.
That's crazy to me. Like, I can imagine a Christianity without a devil, and I can imagine a Christianity with a devil, but I can't imagine a Christianity with a devil that's not Satan.
Right.
Like holy shit. See what I did there? Because that's his name. It's like Beelzebub, right? Lord of the Flies, right?
Yeah, but thinking about that passage, right, in Mark, it's kind of a brain teaser to me, right? So we're saying we're saying that they were saying he is possessed by Beelzebul. So that means that he's working for the devil, I suppose, right? That makes sense to me if Beelzebub and Satan are the same.
Right.
It doesn't make sense to me if they're saying he's possessed by Beelzebul, therefore he's working for Satan. Beelzebul and Satan are two different people. So I don't. That's where I don't quite understand it, right? Or it's just or it's not saying Satan at all. It's just saying that he's working for an enemy. Beelzebub is an enemy. Right. That makes sense to me. The middle one where we're putting in both of them, that makes less sense to me than either of the other two.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, I never actually clocked that.
Yeah, like a logic puzzle to me.
Okay, so what you're saying is like he's working for Beelzebub to cast out Satan's minions.
That doesn't make sense to me.
Right. I don't think the Pharisees were saying that either. I think basically what they were saying is the reason he can cast out the demons is because he's possessed by the king of demons.
Right. Yes. And in that case, Satan is Beelzebub.
Right.
Satan is a capital S. Satan. Beelzebub is that Satan. That makes sense to me. Yeah.
Or and then my new theory is that they weren't even thinking of a capital S Satan.
Right.
They were just like, it's just Beelzebub.
Right.
And we're mistranslating Jesus' words, and we're putting Satan where he would say our enemy.
Right. And that makes sense to me as well.
Yeah. But again, like, I don't know, like maybe I'm, the only one like geeking out about this, but just like the idea that like it's Beelzebub and not Satan, right? Like that we're thinking of, and then Satan like becomes Satan like a little bit later, right? Wow. Yeah. Well, anyway, okay. So yeah, that's gluttony.
Yeah. So I also could not see any reason why they call the Lord of the Flies or Beelzebub or Beelzebul the Prince of Gluttony. I don't know.
Yeah. Now, like I was saying, him and Leviathan do get switched sometimes. So it's Beelzebub for envy and Leviathan for gluttony. And we're thinking, like, okay, Leviathan for gluttony, that makes sense, right?
Right.
And Beelzebub for envy, possibly, there's some like extra biblical tales, and I haven't mentioned them yet because I'm trying to find the actual, like, I want to find out if it's like established old stories or just like something like a little bit like later, like, with Milton or something like that. But there are stories apparently where Beelzebub leads a revolt against the devil.
Okay.
And then, in Paradise Lost, he's like second in command to Satan.
Right.
And I'm thinking, it's like, okay, maybe envy can kind of work in here a little bit.
Yeah, I just wish they drew I could see Leviathan being envy if they drew the connections a little bit more, because in Paradise Lost and Milton's Paradise Lost, Beelzebub has no ill will at all towards Satan. He never.
They're companions dear.
They're companions dear. He never schemes against him, and then he even has Beelzebub like as a plant, like during the council to go and argue for Lucifer's plans without seeming like they come from Lucifer.
Yeah.
And he doesn't seem to have any kind of ill will whatsoever.
Yeah.
I do also see at least one person. This was Francis Barrett, who held up Beelzebub as the prince of idolatry, which would make a lot more sense. But that's not one of the 7 deadly sins that I saw. Right.
Yeah. No, I've seen that as well. Yeah, there is like some other classification where like there's a whole like subsection of demons that are like false gods, and Beelzebub is like the king of that.
That makes perfect sense, especially if they're considering him as the major god by the time they're writing the Christian Bible.
Right. Yeah.
Like the major rival god, I mean, right? Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. And so I don't know. Like the most famous idolatry in the Bible is in the Tanakh, right? And is the golden bull or the golden calf, rather. I don't see anywhere that's like representative of a particular god.
Oh, the golden calf. Yeah. I mean, the golden calf, I think. I mean, this is weird because it's scriptural, but it's also kind of like fabricated as well, because it's like literally the story is about them like making the golden calf.
Oh, of them fabricating a god.
Yeah, like they made it up when Moses was away.
Right, because they just wanted another god, right?
Right. So it wasn't like based on it wasn't like, like Moloch rolled up and was like, hey, you should worship me, and they fell to Moloch. It was like, hey, Moses isn't around. We need someone or something to worship. Let's make a god. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's interesting. So yeah, Beelzebub makes sense for some things.
For false gods.
For false gods, yeah. That makes sense.
If there's a division of that, and maybe envy. I don't know. If he's second to Lucifer, but then all of the stories we have with him and Lucifer, it's not. They're buds.
They're buddies.
Except Satan won't admit it.
Or they're the same person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Yeah. Okay. So, folks, this is where I start to fold my arms a little bit.
Okay.
So we're looking at wrath, right?
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
Yeah. Right. I unfolded just briefly to do that. It's associated here with like hatred and vengeance, right? So plain old anger isn't considered a sin unless it's directed at an innocent person.
Okay.
So wrath was different, right? And you got like 3 subdivisions, right? You have passive wrath, like self-blame and defeatism and apathy, right? And that can lead to like substance abuse and addiction, right? And then you got aggressive wrath, which is like bullying and vengeance and stuff like that, right?
Okay.
And then you got assertive wrath, which is like calling out like bad behavior and blaming and punishing and I don't know, sounds like being an accuser. Right?
Okay.
You know, kind of like a being a bit of a Satan. I don't know. Right?
Yeah, but calling out your bad behavior when you cut that guy off at the bank.
Yeah, right? Exactly. No, calling out bad behavior of others, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? Like when that guy cut me off at the bank.
No, you're already misremembering the story. You cut him off.
What?
Oh, how convenient.
I have
Listeners, you go back and listen
I have
to
a photographic memory, folks.
who cut off who at the bank.
My memory is as consistent as the evolution of the Bible. Yeah. But yeah, okay, like I said, right, this is where I, start to fold my arms a little bit because our next guy, our next prince, remember I said there was one that was going to like throw you all for a loop. It's this one. It's number 6.
6?
6. This is the Prince of Wrath, and according to Binsfeld, it's Satan. Not a Satan, the Satan. So yes, according to Binsfeld, there is a capital S Satan, but he is separate from Lucifer. Now, I know we just went on this whole thing about, Satan and Beelzebub being different, and for some reason, that's fine with me. I don't know why. Maybe because we read Paradise Lost first. But when I read this, I was like, wait. We already had Lucifer. What the hell is this? Keenan, how do you feel about this? About Satan being one of the princes when we already got Lucifer?
I think by the time Binsfeld is writing this in the 1500s, Satan and Lucifer are the same damn person.
Yeah, you are absolutely right.
There is nothing you can do to convince me that they should be split back in twain. That makes no sense to me.
Yeah, no. And no. A lot, Keenan, you are absolutely correct. I'm giving you a little gold star right there. Right? No, a lot of my sources, folks, try to explain this away by saying it's like, some early Christians might have, seen Lucifer and Satan as separate beings, and maybe that's true. Like we just did a whole thing about Beelzebub, right? Possibly being Satan before Satan was Satan. And of course, on this show, we know that the devil is an evolving figure, right? We already talked about how, both of those words, Lucifer and Satan, became associated with the devil over time.
Right.
But certainly by the 16th century, Lucifer and Satan were commonly regarded as the same. So Binsfeld's separation of them was going against the commonly held view.
Evolution of the devil's great. We wouldn't have a job.
Right, exactly.
If the devil hadn't evolved.
Yeah.
We'd have one episode of this and we'd have to call it a day.
Right. We'd be like, hey, folks, what about devil? And then that's it. And we're done. Right?
Go to truestory.fm/join.
Yeah.
Become a member.
Right. Will you get more episodes? No.
But you can get this episode, which you already listened to, a week early.
Yeah, right? Just wrap your head around, if you can conceive of a perfect episode. Yeah. But also, okay, so Binsfeld wasn't the only one to make this separation. A little bit earlier, during the medieval period, Satan and Lucifer were being written as separate beings in some circles of theology, of demonology, and the occult. In fact, many people speculate Binsfeld was heavily inspired by that Lantern of Light, which I had talked about before, right? It was around 1409 to 1410, right? Which was, again, the first text to assign the 7 princes to the 7 deadly sins, and it also separated Lucifer and Satan. So while this wasn't the commonly held belief, the distinction seems to have existed in certain circles. But again, even within those circles, it's understood as a new idea. It's not like, oh, everybody thinks they're the same, but we have older texts that say otherwise. No. They had the same texts. Everyone's starting with the same texts. But then these folks were writing new texts based on a new interpretation, which has survived in modern demonology and occult practices, but not so much in Judeo-Christian Abrahamic theology. So now, Satan and Lucifer being separate beings is pretty much strictly an occult and demonology thing. And actually, that's partially thanks to Binsfeld himself in this categorization. Yeah.
It's a regression, Binsfeld.
Yes.
You're regressing.
You're regressing.
Okay, but let's take this for granted here. Let's take this as a given that Satan and Lucifer are 2 of the 7 princes of hell.
I don't want to, people. But sure.
Why Satan for wrath? Lucifer as pride makes sense?
Yeah, it makes sense, yeah.
Why Satan for wrath as opposed to, that's another problem with this is there's so many other demons. Why not just get another demon? I have
seen all other 7 princes of hell where it's Behemoth.
That makes sense.
That makes sense, right? And you also got you already got Leviathan, right? You have the 2 big, crushing animals, right? Yeah, one for and the other for wrath.
I don't know. I guess you can't have women demons being one of the leaders of hell.
Yeah,
but
hey.
Lilith makes a lot of sense for wrath, I would say. Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it'll just be like she's the demon queen of independence
Yeah, sure.
and saying no. And that's not not really a bad thing.
No, but also this like holding this grudge, that's kind of the Lilith thing is like not forgetting what Adam had done to her and being angry about it for the rest of time. I mean that's
Sure.
Yeah. That's why in the versions where she is a demon and not a heroine.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. But anyways, like I'm sure there's other ones, but Satan, I don't give special credence to Satan's wrath or anger.
Well, I feel like it's because just Satan itself, just like just the concept, just the whether it's lowercase s or capital S, he like embodies all of the sins,
right?
Like wherever you want to put, like that's the whole point. Is you're trying to come up with one guy,
right,
who contains all of the sins.
Yeah, I think
the invention of Satan.
Eventually, we'll have to go back to Scripture and do some episodes on Revelation, which is where I think a lot of our ideas of Satan are. But like where it's like, okay, there's the battle in heaven, and now there's going to be another battle on earth for heaven again. And I still think that sin is more pride than wrath.
But Satan. Yeah, this one is a stumper for me. Guys.
Yeah.
And what they're trying to say is like this Satan, this Prince of Wrath, is the Satan from Job, is the Satan that tempted Jesus. Basically, anytime Satan is mentioned in the Bible, it's this guy. And he's wrath because he's the accuser and because he is the antithesis of God, and God is love, and so Satan must be like hate. And that's But again, like all of these princes and their assignment to like these sins, like you're just making these leaps. It's like, well, Beelzebub is gluttony because flies eat a lot of stuff, right? And that's like, okay, sure. Leviathan is envy because envy twists you and turns you into like an unrecognizable thing. I don't know. I swear, like some of these guys just erased the "I don't know" from there. Say, I don't know. It's just like flies and stuff.
It really is. They wanted 7. The 7 deadly sins are an arbitrary number as well, and then that became the arbitrary number. So they needed 7 princes, and so they picked the 7 they liked the most, I guess. Yeah,
it's just doubling down. It's like arbitrary upon arbitrary upon, and it's like if we If we stack enough arbitraries on top of each other, maybe they will become true arbitraries. But you can't, right? 2 wrongs don't make a right.
Right.
Anyway. Okay, so now we come to the final sin. This is the sin of sloth.
Finally.
It took us a while. Cause,
I've been sitting my ass here all day trying to wait till we get sloth coming.
All right.
I didn't do anything about it.
No. Now, this is, in my opinion, the most misunderstood sin, I think. On the surface, it doesn't really seem all that bad, and it's just so comfortable.
Yeah.
And it's also, like, passive. Like I said, I mean, like, it's the most passive of the 7 deadly sins, right? It's like you commit it accidentally, right? However, it might not have meant the same thing back then as it does today.
Okay.
We got some clues from the Latin word from which it derives. This is acedia, A-C-E-D-I-A, meaning without a care. Dante actually mentions sloth again in Purgatorio. Remember, they were in the river of shit in Inferno. But there's more slothful folks coming up the mountain in Purgatorio. And it's explained there that sloth comes out of a lack of love. So meaning like loving others. So when love is put towards like selfish desires and hedonism, that's how sloth creeps in. And again, not just bodily sloth, but loss of care, loss of empathy for fellow humans. And this type of sloth leads to sadness and depression. It also allows for the devil's influence to creep in. They say idleness is the devil's workshop, right? And evil exists when good people fail to act. Now, folks, I was ready with this one. I was raising my hand, and I was like, oh, I know who it is. His name means worthless, and he was all about sloth in Paradise Lost. It's Belial, right? There's even the passage where the guy gets possessed by a feeling of worthlessness, and he can't get up out of bed. Right? It's Belial. Just tell me it's Belial. It's not. It's not Belial. I was completely wrong.
Can I guess who it is?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Could it be Satan?
That is the laziest answer.
Thank you.
How pissed off would people be? It's like we got Lucifer, and then we got Satan, and then we got Satan again. Yeah, no. The Prince of Sloth, according to Binsfeld, is Belphegor, whom I had never heard of until this episode.
Nope.
But yeah, Binsfeld saw him as the Chief of Laziness. How do you work for that title?
Yeah, I would apply for that job
right?
if I wasn't such a lazy ass.
It's like, but the application requires actually applying. Right? It's like, oh, well,
Right.
It's like, all you got to do is just
Never mind. Maybe next year.
Hit Command A and just put all of your resume into one size font. That's all you got to do. It's like, but that's 2 buttons.
Yeah.
And then you want me to print it out. And I got to show up at the meeting. No, it's okay. It's Zoom. It's like, I got to install Zoom on my computer.
Right. Zoom keeps asking me to update it.
And I know it updates itself. But okay, we got to give this guy a little bit more credit.
Okay.
He is associated in other sources with manipulation and deceit. One source says he specializes in convincing humans to make ingenious inventions that will make them rich, which, like work smarter, not harder, right? It's not a bad thing necessarily.
I don't see it. Yeah.
But this source continues, once these great works, these discoveries or these inventions are complete, the wealth and the esteem are snatched away by Belphegor. And I couldn't find anything else elaborating this line. But to me, it sounds like we're being allegorical here. Like you work really, really hard at something, you make a thing, an invention, or a piece of art, and then once it's done and it's doing really well, you sort of like fall back into laziness and you just kind of like coast on the success for however long it lasts.
Okay.
Right? And then once it runs out, people are like waiting for your next big thing and you realize, oh shit, like I haven't been keeping sharp. I forgot how to work. That sounds like what they're saying. And this demon, I had never heard of him until, this Peter Binsfeld thing. So I almost wondered if he was like a little gremlin guy who got promoted to Demon Prince. You know how like they have those little folktales like it's like, oh, the pixies are the ones who make you forget to lock your door. No, you actually did lock your door and they unlocked it. Or it's not that you suck at baking. You just didn't leave milk out for the pixies and they fucked up your cake. Right? And guys, I'm gonna sound like a broken record here, but like one of the common traits of ADHD is like bouncing back and forth between like periods of like hyper focus, right? You are just like on task, right? You're working 3 times harder than and faster than anyone else in the room, and you're solving these complex problems, coming up with these creative solutions, and you seemingly can't get tired. And then that's followed by a period where you literally just might as well be a rock. Like even the simplest task is too much, and you just like lay in bed, and it's like yesterday you were out working everybody, and today you can't even get out of bed to make breakfast so you just don't eat, right? And I'm, of course I'm oversimplifying, but it struck me, going on my own ADHD discovery journey, and earlier, like we speculated that, the passage about Belial was actually talking about somebody being possessed by depression. And so now I'm like, oh, is Belphegor like how they explained ADHD possibly?
Okay.
Like, just like being really, really creative and working and making these great, works of ingenuity and art, and then having that be snatched away by this demon, right? And you becoming slothful. And I wouldn't think that if he was just sloth.
Okay.
But he also seems to be like associated with creativity and ingenuity. And then he like steals all the wealth and esteem by making you lazy. And man, that is like, ask anybody with ADHD how many times they've heard like at a parent-teacher conference or like a meeting with the principal where it's like, he's brilliant, but he's lazy. Right?
Right, that's gifted kid syndrome, yeah.
Right. Ask any kid with ADHD how sick they are of hearing their parents or their teachers say, it's like, you're really smart, you're just lazy.
You don't apply yourself.
Yeah, right? Like, thanks, you that doesn't help me as much as you think it does, right? Ugh. But yeah, Belphegor seems like he was made as a scapegoat for this exact thing. It's like yesterday you were working so hard and you made this brilliant thing, and now you're just a lump. What's wrong with you? It's Belphegor.
But yeah, is this? I mean, depending on when they're writing this, I could see that kind of thing. That kind of thing is always a little bit vilified, like these new progressions in technology or processes of like
the printing press is going to ruin the English language.
Yeah. You know, I tell my students that I really hate when they vilify the new technologies the kids are into. They're like, these TikToks, they can't watch a movie anymore, which is what some of my colleagues in film studies say. Like they don't have the attention span to watch movies anymore. And then when movies came out and when TV came out, they were like, oh, this is keeping them away from books. And then as you say, like, oh, they don't have to write books anymore, or they can just print books. Yeah. And that really happened. And then Socrates is like, oh, writing is ruining the young people because they don't memorize anything anymore.
Yeah, so all the way back to Socrates, folks. Yeah, like talking about writing things down. This is like,
how lazy writing things down was. Yeah, that's what they thought. Yeah, so I wonder, but I can see that, in Germany in the 1500s, and Binsfeld's writing about that. Is this really just a conservative take on the new world with the printing press and everything that's coming out in Germany at that time?
It was the work of the devil, obviously.
Right. If you didn't, it wasn't really hard for you, then it's not worth doing, right?
It's blood, sweat, and tears. And if there are no tears, or if there is no blood, or if there is no sweat, or you must have three. You have all three in equal proportions. If you are missing ones, and you are under the influence of one of the demons. I don't know which one. We
will let you know. We will come back to you.
Yes, we'll enclose ourselves in a cloister, and no, not a cloister. That's the other thing.
It's Satan.
Yes.
We've decided it is Satan.
Sorry, I made that mistake. I need to go and flog myself now.
Oh, these monks today with the flogs.
They have the soft leather flogs. It's not even, they don't tie the little pieces of metal on the ends of the flogs anymore. It's like, you just want babies? You just want your milk and and your soft little flogs? It's like, it's like I don't even see any welts on your it doesn't even it doesn't even break the skin anymore.
Yeah, they say it hurts on the inside. Well, I would like to see that.
Yeah. Show me the bruises on your heart. But yeah. So that's what I was thinking. It was like he's like some kind of like allegorical like gremlin or something like that, right? And again, like Belphegor, it sounds like it doesn't have the L at the end of it, like we know, like the angel names have, right?
Oh,
Right, so like Azrael or Michael or Gabriel, right? So I was thinking he was just like this made up guy, right? Like Billy Billiken, right? Yeah, but actually, folks, Belphegor does appear in the Bible, maybe, kind of, right? Not as Belphegor, but scholars are speculating that the name Baal Peor. So there we go. There's Baal. That's okay. Baal. That's an established thing. This is in Numbers 25. They're linking this to him, right? And folks, again, Baal means Lord. Now Peor is said to mean wide opening.
Yeah.
Now that could be a reference to like the geographical placement of the city, like next to a nearby mountain, or like a cave in the mountain. But once Belphegor gets demonized, it becomes associated with the first thing that you thought. Yeah, don't pretend.
Wide opening?
Yeah. You know you went there.
I normally do, and I didn't go this time. Okay.
Really? Because I did.
This time.
It was like, wide opening, huh?
Because I had read Lord of the Gap.
Yes, right. He's also Lord of the Gap, right?
Right. So, like, he likes khakis and polo shirts and swing music.
Oh wow! So it got like it went so dirty that it became less dirty.
Right. Fall into the gap.
Yeah. Yeah. Belphegor's gap. Yeah. But no. Okay. So let's read this actual passage, right?
Okay.
So, quote: while Israel was staying in Shittim.
Yeah. What's that?
I think that's no, that's not a thing. That's just the name of a place.
Shittim?
No, we can't. I don't think we can make fun of that. That's
no.
That's a place.
Well, if your place has the word shit in it, I think we can. We're allowed to. Okay. Shittim is a village in southern Okay, look. If this is the same shittim of the Bible,
Yes, it is.
it might not be.
No, it is.
No. I was saying on Wikipedia, Shittim is a community settlement in southern Israel, located in the Araba Valley. It falls under the jurisdiction of the Hevel Elliott Regional Council. In 2019, it had a population of 4.
Okay.
So we can make fun of this place. There's 4 people there.
Your reasoning that we can make fun of it is because no one will know.
Yes.
No one from Shittim.
No one from Shittim will know, right? People from Tel Aviv might hear us. Maybe they have a friend. It's unlikely they have a friend in Shittim.
Yeah. No. Okay. All right.
It's 4 people.
This is like 4. Those 4 5-star reviews suddenly disappear from our show. Then we'll know. Yeah. Okay. All right. So. Okay, let me read this holy text one more time, okay?
All right, I won't interrupt you this
time. All right. While Israel was staying in Shittim, the men began...
Hey, I wasn't interrupting you. You interrupted yourself. I promised you I wasn't going to stop you.
It's probably not even pronounced that way. It's like Sittim or something like that.
Hittim or something.
Yeah, sure. But I'm not going to do that because I'm not sure.
I'm not stopping you.
Okay. All right.
You're stopping yourself.
All right. While Israel was staying in that place. While Israel was staying in Shittim, the men began to indulge in sexual immorality with Moabite women, who invited them to the sacrifices to their gods. The people ate the sacrificial meal and bowed down before these gods. So Israel yoked themselves to the Baal of Peor, and the Lord's anger burned against them. So, this passage describes how the Israelites were led into idolatry by the Moabites, specifically worshiping the Baal of Peor. The chapter goes on to describe God's anger and the subsequent punishment of the Israelites, including, a plague that killed 24,000 people.
Right.
So we're sort of seeing the older version of sloth depicted here, right? Not necessarily laziness, but just like, physical, spiritual hedonism, just, satisfying all your base needs, your physical desires. And folks, if you Google a picture of this guy, of Belphegor, you're going to see a very interesting image. Keenan, do you see this thing that I'm talking about?
I believe you're talking about him from the Dictionary Infernal.
Yeah, the Dictionary Infernal.
And he's holding his tail up.
He's holding his tail up, and he's sitting on a chair. And we might not recognize it as such, but I have confirmed that is a toilet.
Of course it is. Yes, that is of course it is. Yeah. You could, now that I know that I'm looking there is a little gap underneath him. Yeah, so he's holding his tail up so it doesn't fall in the gap.
Yes, right. He does not want to fall into the gap. Right.
He's an old Navy guy.
Yeah. Right. But yeah, so if wide opening weren't suggestive enough, scholars are translating Belphegor to mean Lord Anus. So there you go.
Great.
Right?
Those are my kind of scholars.
Yeah. So Belphegor is kind of scriptural, right? He's appropriational because he was the Baal of Peor. He's also allegorical, and actually he's also mythical/literary. There seems to be a legend, though I can't trace its origin, where Satan sends Belphegor to Earth to see if true love or marital love exists, and how they can possibly exploit it if it does. And so Belphegor goes to Earth. Some accounts say for 10 years, and he searches far and wide to find true love. He has all these adventures or misadventures, and then he comes back to Satan nah, it's just chemicals and fear of dying alone. And Machiavelli actually adapted this folktale in his novella Belphegor Archidiavolo, Belphegor the Archdevil, right? And in his version, Belphegor gets married, and after a while, he returns to hell and reports to Satan that being married is worse than being in hell. Right? It's
Machiavelli is a boomer, I guess.
Yeah.
Tells boomer jokes.
Well, yeah, Machiavelli is he's the original alpha creep. Talking about seduction and manipulation and all that, right? So of course it's going to be super sexist when Machiavelli does it, right?
Okay, all right.
So in Machiavelli's retelling, right, Belphegor goes back down to hell, and he's like, "Women, am I right, boss?" And Satan's like, yeah, even I'm afraid of them, and I'm the Lord of evil. Whatever, Machiavelli.
Well, I have a couple more things about Belphegor because, we hadn't really encountered him before. He's one of the names in Paradise Lost, but it's in some section where it's like, and this and this and this person and that person.
Okay, I was wondering about that because I tried to. I was like, is he in Paradise Lost? And I couldn't find him again. Okay.
I'll find. This is it. I'll read it for you. All right. From noun to noun and the wild of sunmost noun, it has noun and noun, noun's realm, beyond the flowery dale of noun clad with vines, and noun to the apostolic pool. Peor, his other name, when he enticed Israel and Shittim on their march from the Nile to do him wanton rites, which cost them woe.
Oh, okay, so he is in there.
Yeah, but it's as Peor.
As Peor.
Belphegor is
That's
Peor, right?
why it was hard to find him. Okay.
Yes, so he's in there.
Okay.
But yeah, two other things here. So in the Dictionnaire Infernal by, who wrote this? Jacques Colline de Plancet.
Yes.
So that looks interesting. There's a bunch of like demons listed there.
Oh, yes, I have that. That's
oh,
actually...
cool. We should go back to that, yeah.
Yeah.
In there, right, de Plancet says that Belphegor is Hell's ambassador to France.
Right. I remember that.
So is a Frenchman writing this, so it's a Frenchman satire about his own country.
Oh, okay. I thought, interesting. Okay. Because I can see it being like, it's an Englishman.
Right,
an
Englishman writing that, yeah.
Ambassador to France.
Right, exactly.
Or a French person saying he's the ambassador to England, but...
Right, yeah. So then apparently it's like Hugo uses that when he's talking about Belphegor as well, that he writes in Toilers of the Sea, and he says that Belphegor is Hell's ambassador to France.
Well, there you go. Right.
And there's also a big, long prime number that is called Belphegor's prime.
Right, yes.
So, geez, how many ones and zeros is this? So let me read this to you here.
Okay.
So it's a prime number, and it's palindrome. So you read it the same backwards and forwards. So it's a palindrome, right? 1 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 6 6 6 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 1.
I'm sorry, you cut out. Can you read that one more time?
Oh, for real?
No.
Oh. So that's a prime number they discovered, and because it has a 666 right in the middle, they named it after Belphegor.
And I guess also because like it amounts to like not a lot because there's so many zeros, maybe. Like where's the
the thing I'm seeing? No, it wasn't the slothiness. It was his inventional part of it. So he was a scientist, is what they were saying. So like it's a 666, and they picked one of the 7 princes of hell who is a scientist.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Huh.
Oh, wait, so I'm reading here. So it would be 1 quintillion, 66 billiard. I haven't heard that word before.
Okay.
600 billion 1.
Billiard. Wow.
I don't know that billiard. Yeah.
I mean, I know other billiards, but not that billiard.
Oh, that's some math. That's some math way to read it. Okay. In the layman's term way to read it.
Okay.
Sorry. 1 nonillion, 66 quadrillion, 600 trillion 1.
Wow. I'm learning today that I'm even dumber than a layman.
Right. They don't even let us know that other version.
I like, it's like, okay, that's a math term in stupid, dumb, idiot people language.
Right, but that one made more sense to you,
yes,
right?
It did. I was like, I'm more familiar with that number that I don't understand.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Wow. Oh, But yeah, folks, those are all of the 7 deadly sins and their 7 princes of hell, at least according to Binsfeld.
Right.
And remember, he was inspired by earlier works like Lantern of Light, as well as the screams of his tortured victims, the supposed witches. So very much like Baphomet, this whole hierarchy was actually dragged kicking and screaming, literally, out of the mouths of those supposed witches and onto the page by Binsfeld. But according to him, that's how you know it's real. Also, remember, he was regarded as very intelligent and reasonable. And, folks, this was crazy to wrap my head around. This is 100 years before Milton and Paradise Lost, but 200 years after the Divine Comedy. So people were, like, over in Italy reading the Divine Comedy, and they're like, hey, what are they doing over in Germany? They're burning people. We're just reading this book about, about Dante.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I know, partially, like, we need to go in order historically, but that's just impossible to tell history that way sometimes.
That was something like Keenan kind of made me feel a little bit better about that because I was stressing over. It's like, oh no, we forgot this, and we already talked about Paradise Lost, and this comes before that, and all this. But yeah, there's so much stuff, guys. So we're gonna mention when something is a little bit older versus a little bit more modern.
Yeah, real historians don't go chronologically.
No.
No, that'd be ridiculous. You wouldn't get anything done.
Right. You would have I don't know. You would have to like fill in the gaps by making shit up. And nobody does that.
Nobody does that.
No.
But Phlegethon, or whatever his name is, the Lord of the Gaps.
Belphegor.
Phlegethon
is one of the rivers in Hades.
So I did learn something.
Yes. But yeah, folks, that's all of my notes for this episode. Keenan, you got anything else?
No, I think we got it.
All right, folks, I have been Lester Ryan Clark. You can summon me on all the socials as Lester Ryan Clark.
And I've been Keenan Diaz, and you can invoke me on Instagram and Letterboxd as Howdy Keenan.
Yeah, we got our listener group, Banana First Scale. That's a community for all of our shows, including this one. It's a private group. Just request to join, and we'll let you in. If you want more, consider joining us at truestory.fm/join and look for Banana First Scale. That's us. You get bonus episodes of all our shows, access to our Discord, and you get your episodes a week early. Pretty cool. Wouldst thou like to live deliciously? We're not even asking for your souls. Just give us a 5 pentagram rating on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you listen to our show. That and sharing the show by word of mouth or on social media helps our little podcast grow and find more cool people like you. Okay, folks, that's it for this week. Until next time, love and hisses. Mwah!